There we go. We were waiting for the red light, Jenny. We're live.
We were.
Brace yourselves, buckle yourselves in, grab a seat, and welcome, as always, Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, to this week's episode of the Lincoln Property and Mortgage Show with myself, Michael Hollenby. You'll see my little title under my name has changed this week. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And also with Jenny from Your Mortgage Hub as well. We've got a great show lined up today. Based on lots of conversations in particular that I'm having, and also something that was reported with Rightmove a couple of weeks ago at one of the Property Mark conferences, and something again that affects myself, Jenny, and people moving home, and that is what happens if my sale falls through. So we're going to dive into that today. So if you're watching, please make sure you watch to the end. And we've got some what we think are going to be some really helpful tips for you to see you through that process and get you back on the move again. So before we do any of that, let's roll the credits and start off in this week's show. Right, so Jenny, first of all, as we always do, we have a little check-in just to see how your week's been and how are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good, to be fair. Easter bank holiday was good, though. I think everyone and his mate went and bought a house over the weekend. I'm sure you you felt that as well. Or they decided to buy a house. So as always, I am completely inundated with new inquiries, which is nice. It's good. It's good to see that the market is moving, people are buying, and it's all going in the right direction, shall we say. What about yourself, Mike? How was your weekend?
It's one of those, people sort of talk a lot about, don't they, about, it's bank holiday weekend. Not in our world, is it, Jenny? It has. It's been a very busy weekend. Lots going on. But the housing market still continues to go from strength to strength. And on that front end, it is all positive news. It's something that we were sort of forecasting back in the episodes way back in sort of November and December of last year. All of that seems to have come, to fruition. But what we're finding now is obviously we've talked a lot about how to present your home to sale, how to do viewings, how to negotiate a sale, how to get your mortgage ready, how to look at solicitors. Excuse me, we've talked about all those steps involved. But one thing we need to talk about now is, okay, in the best case scenario, 12 weeks down the line, you're going to be handing your keys over, you're moving into your new home. But staggering statistic, just over 40%, so 42% of house sales that have been secured this year, particularly on price reduced homes, it's worth me adding in there as well, have fallen through this year. That's an alarming statistic. Probably the average statistically, you would normally say about 20% of house sales will fall through. And there's a statistic that throughout a 12-month period, you're never going to escape from that sort of data figure. So we always know if you're going to sell 10 houses, on average, 2 are going to fall through. But to see that double within a 3-month period is quite alarming. And I touched on this last week, where we were talking about how new priced properties are influencing sales. But what we are seeing is sometimes the people who have then gone on and bought those properties have probably pushed themselves a little bit up to that maximum with that price coming down. So we found that has had an influence into the local market. And this is from region to region. Obviously, areas are very, very different across the country. This is affecting particularly the South market. And what we always find is, the Lincoln market is usually several months behind that. But there is always sort of a ripple effect. But we are seeing it in Lincoln at the moment. As I'm driving around a lot at the moment, I'm seeing boards that have been up with sold on them back to for sale. And it's a horrible feeling. And it's not a nice situation to find yourself upon. So we thought it was an important subject to talk about. So before we get into what we can do to help, Jenny, are you starting to see, on the mortgage side of things? I know you're talking that you're very busy on the front end side, but are you starting to see renegotiations and sales again also being affected with you now?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, Mike, I think we have seen more and more people that this is happening to. And it's people's worst fear. They go through this whole roller coaster ride of emotions when you buy a home, regardless whether it's your first, your forever home, or even a buy to let that you fear it may fall out, that something that's going to happen along the chain. And I think, I don't know about you, Mike, I'm seeing chains getting longer and longer and longer. You know, before, historically, I'd say there's maybe 3, 4 in a chain, and at the moment we're seeing sort of 6, 7, 8, and that's a huge chain to try and keep running all the way through. And you only need one person in that whole chain to fall out for whatever reason, and it can have on a massive impact all the way down the chain. I guess there's some people that will break the chain, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit later on. And very rarely does it mean the end of it. It just means everyone needs to up their game, I guess, is, you know, it doesn't have to be so doom and gloom if the chain does collapse.
Definitely. So as we're going to talk through some of these topics tonight, again, it's always quite an emotive subject to talk about, but we want to give some really helpful advice to people. We'd like you to get involved. If you've got any questions or you want to share your experiences, please make sure you comment and put your name in the comments as well. We've had some really good interaction, particularly over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We've got lots of people watching as well this evening. And again, if we come across a comment or a bit of advice that you think is good advice, please make sure you hit the like button for us. Again, it always helps us, again, just as we're sort of sharing this news out as well. So anywhere along the lines tonight, if there's some involvement from yourselves, please feel free to do so. So we're going to start off with what happens as soon as you get that dreaded phone call from your estate agent to say that the sale has fallen through. And the first thing is always not to panic. Okay. What I always say here is knowledge is going to help you decide how you're going to move things forward. Now, the reason why I say don't panic is sometimes an estate agent, and I've sat in offices where it's happened, and I've sat with vendors when they've had phone calls when an agent has rang them. It's just needed to let you know the sale's fallen through, etc., etc. But don't worry, we're just going to put the house straight back on the market, and we'll put you back as as available on Rightmove and on the portals. But there are so many unanswered questions with that conversation that all you're going to do is you're going to do everything and worry. Okay, so the first thing that I've put down is not to panic. It's not the end of the world. However, we do need to try and find out exactly why and what's happened. Okay, so there's lots of questions that you'll now need to start asking your estate agent or your solicitor, because sometimes it's the solicitor will let you know. So in no particular order, I'm going to fire through a few of these. And again, Jenny, feel free to sort of interact or talk about your experience. But the first thing, as I say, is to talk to your agent or your solicitor or the person bringing you that news and find out what's happened. And the key thing is don't get fobbed off. Don't feel as if you just have to accept the decision and that's it. There's nothing more that people can do. If you feel that the agent or the solicitor's done everything in their power to keep the sale together and keep the chain progressed, then that's another scenario. But I think it's really important that we really do a dive down into what's happened and where in the chain. So again, we talk about chains and it's an industry term, but just to clarify, where myself and Jenny talk about chains, it's the number of people in the ladder or the chain from the bottom, either an investor, cash buyer, first-time buyer, right up through all the people involved in the whole of the sale process, the whole of the sale, right up to the top where there's usually retirement, death, no chain involved, new build, something like that. Okay, so as Jenny touched on earlier, there's often 3 or 4 people in that, but we are seeing chains getting much, much bigger and more across the whole of the county and country as well. Often Lincoln's one of these areas where we tend to move quite insular within the county. But what we are finding is, and particularly since COVID, actually, more and more people are moving right across the country. So agents are having a lot more work to do in keeping communication between those agents. So why and what? Why did it go wrong and what's triggered that? And it can be several different things. In summary, it's always down to money. Now, what I mean by that is, even if we look at something like a survey result has come back, and let's use that as an example. Somebody's come back and said, look, someone down the chain, they've had the survey back and they've decided they're not going to proceed. So unfortunately, the sale's fallen through. We're going to have to put your house back on the market. And you go, oh, okay then. Right, there's nothing we can do about that. But this is where we need to, that's a fob off. We need to find, okay, so where in the chain did it fall through? What was the property that was being sold? Now, Chains normally fall through for conditional on survey if it's an older style property, or something should have been done to rectify that property, or something has been done and it hasn't been registered properly. So it's finding out exactly what happened and where in that chain that survey has affected it. Because there's been a situation, there can be lots of situations, but there are situations where a chain will fall through based on survey because it's been downvalued.
Yeah.
Because of condition or conditional works that need to be done. But what we need to be finding out is, okay, what were those things that needed to be done? And did the survey and the property value up? Now, I'm going to explain what that means. Let's say, for example, you buy a property that is at £240,000 and the survey comes back and say it's only worth £220,000 in its current condition because it needs all these works doing to it. There'll often be terminology in there to say that if those works are done, the property value would be back up at the 240,000. And it's often very unlikely that it's actually going to cost 20 grand's worth of work to get done. It's just an inconvenience factor as well in a timescale. But there can be negotiations to say, well, what about if we renegotiate on there? Or if we do the work on it and we buy everybody some time to get the work done, we can keep the chain together. What an estate agent needs to be doing with the solicitor here and the lender is to say, if it's been downvalued or if the valuations come back, but it says that there are recommendations for works to be done, but it's still valued up at the 240, that's a very, very different conversation. Yeah. Because and then an estate agent needs to be going back to the buyer at this point saying, yes, it has come back with remedial works. You're buying an older property. You saw the property in the condition that it was when you went round. However, there will be things that will have been potentially brought up in the survey that you weren't aware of. But the point is the market value of that property has still valued up at the 240,000. So it's still worth what you're paying for it. Okay. Sometimes the knee-jerk reactions is that a buyer will think, oh, well, it needs all this work doing on it, so they're going to back out. But the intention was you were happy to have paid that price, and the market value and the surveyors still value it up. So in that situation, I would always say that it's the agent's responsibility to try and keep that negotiation going to say, look, you may have found out some things about the condition of the property that you weren't aware of, but you're buying a style of property that will need ongoing maintenance, but the property is valued up. That's one way that you can have a look at keeping a chain together when you've got surveys back, is to find out, was it downvalued? Was it downvalued but with recommendation works to bring it back up to market value? Or did it give recommendations of work, but it's still valued up at the market price it's being sold at? Okay. So Jenny, do you get experience of sort of, surveys coming back and people thinking, actually, I need to increase my mortgage, or, that fits with your lending?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing more and more of it at the moment, Mike, if I'm honest, because I think on two folds, I think lenders are using surveys to lower their risk. We're seeing a lot of that in the market at the moment, where potentially there are down valuations for no real reason. But we're also seeing that lenders taking a more of a watchful eye on certain properties. I've got a case on my books at the moment where we've had to go for a full damp and timber report. Due to the age of the property. No one is surprised at all, the location, the age of the property, that this has come up, but the lender would usually have let that pass. Now they've requested this damp and timber report, and they put what's called a retention on it.
Yeah.
So a retention is a bit like what Mike was explaining there about, they're coming back and they're saying there's this remedial work, but the way they will work with a lender is they'll say, for example, we'll give you £100,000 mortgage. We're putting a retention of £10,000 until this work is completed, and you've shown that work to be completed. So when it comes to it, they'll actually send you out £90,000. You do the remedial work, you get all of that done, and they'll send you the other 10,000. And what I see more and more of recently, they're putting on a retention for the full mortgage amount, which is basically them trying to secure themselves and the property by doing that. Now, that's not the end of the world. And we are seeing a bit of an old school practice come back in that helps everyone out in this scenario. So I've had this conversation twice today alone, whereby some works need to be completed. The buyers don't have the money. They don't have the money to do that work. And the seller doesn't have the cash to do the work either. So it's like, we know this work needs to be done. One wants to buy it, one wants to sell it, but we've got the lender sat in the middle saying, well, I need this work doing, and I need it doing quickly. So, there's a bit of an old school way around. It's a bit like cash back. So you will buy the property for the value that it is, so say 100,000. The work is 10,000, but the vendor, so the people that are selling you it, will receive only 90,000 of that cash. And then the other 10,000 will go back to the buyer. And we're seeing a lot more of this happening at the moment because pockets are tight, because lenders are being more cautious around the valuations. And it's a bit of an old school practice that has come screaming back. I think in the last 6 months, I'm seeing more and more people taking this up. So it's almost like a bit of a cashback. Not all lenders allow it, but a good portion of lenders will go, yeah, that makes sense. We want that work doing. The money's there. The vendor hasn't got the cash to do it. The buyers haven't got the cash to do it. So let's take it out and we can do it in that way. So we're seeing more and more of that at the moment, Mike, purely because of these down valuations. But again, that's what can keep that whole chain ticking along nicely.
And I think that leads me on to my next point is sometimes, again, coming back to money, it might mean that the chain needs to renegotiate. Because something can come back with, let's say, for example, it's 5,000 and they just think, look, we haven't got any more money in the pot. There needs to be then conversations back up the chain or down the chain involving everybody to say, look, somebody else might have deeper pockets. And for them to keep that sale going through for the additional £5,000, estate agents have ways where we can sort of educate them in regard to, look, if the sale falls through and it takes us another 6-8 weeks to resell it, and another 12 weeks to go through, that's a potential another 5 to 6 months of your mortgage payment. Bearing in mind you're down valuing and you're moving down, in value on the property. Is there an opportunity where, for the sake, we can all sort of chip in a little bit along the renegotiations and we move that value back down the chain so that everybody renegotiates so that the sale can carry on in the timescale that was first, anticipated. So that's another way of keeping things back together again, by somebody helping out, or a number of people helping out for that matter, to try and keep whoever needs to keep that sort of sale proceeding in the chain, to keep it going, basically. So renegotiation. So again, money is always really important there as well. So next thing I want to talk about is if you do then need to remarket the property, it's about how you go about that. So if you've exhausted all your lines of communication, you can't extend the time scale, you can't get the work done, nobody's got deeper pockets, and the sale is going to get to the point where it needs to go back on the market, you then need to be having a conversation with your agent to say, okay, so we need to hit that button again and relaunch it. But what are you going to do as an agent to try and help me secure a buyer again? Because the tendency is they'll say, well, we'll pop it back on Rightmove and on Zoopla on the market, and we'll change your board over back to for sale. Okay, but what else are we able to do? Because there's lots of things that agents can do. And the first tip here is, first of all, look at the photographs. Because if you put your property on the market in November and December and you secured a buyer in December or January and your sales are now 6 to 8 weeks in and the sales falling through, some of that photography that would have been used at that time of the year is now quite dated. So it would have had grey skies. It was a bit gloomy. The weather wasn't brilliant. The lighting wouldn't have been great inside the house. Look, go back and take new photographs. We've all seen the weather over the last few days, although it's been hit and miss. But look, we're getting bluer skies. The weather's better. The daffodils are out. The tulips are out. It's a brighter. You can get much better photography if you were to relaunch it. So one of the things you can do very, very simply is, okay, if we're going to relaunch it, let's have a look at the photography. And also the bullet points and the text, because sometimes that can be quite seasonal on how you've described the properties. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing, again, talking about money. If the property was on at 250,000 and you've secured a sale at 240,000, the tendency is the agent will want to put it back on the market at 250,000. As the homeowner, you may want to as well. Mm-hmm. The conversation needs to be had about putting it back on the market at 240,000. Because price is important. If you put it back on at 250, you're in fierce competition with probably a huge statistic amount of properties percentage-wise that are also on the market at that price for lots of different reasons. But if you've got your contracts drawn up at 240,000 and your paperwork is all set to go with your solicitors and your mortgage lenders and your buyer, you could find yourself 2 to 3 weeks further ahead by renegotiation and with remarketing than if you put it on the market at 250,000 again. Now, I'm not saying you have to do that, but I'm saying it's another conversation to be had to say, actually, Mr. Agent, if I put the property back on the market at what I sold it for last time, how much more confident are you at being able to find me another buyer at that price? I don't want to have to renegotiate off it, but I'm happy to stick it at that price. But you need to be doing everything you can to try and get me that figure and get things back on at that price again. Okay. So that's the other thing that I'd be talking to them about, is trying to relaunch it with a fresh approach and also include social media. And again, you know that this is a big topic of mine, is sometimes just being upfront with people and saying, look, due for unforeseen circumstances that we didn't anticipate, this property's had to come back on the market. We've got a full chain above, or we've got a full chain below, or somewhere in the gap. We just need to fill that next piece in the jigsaw puzzle. So if you missed out on this property when it was first sold, this is your opportunity to come back in and have a look and renegotiate with us. And if you're having those conversations with people, I think you're just being very upfront with them. People know where they stand with it, and people sometimes like to help where they can. And if it knows that, you know, we can put things back in place, I think those conversations sometimes can also benefit the chain as well.
And I think just on that, Mike, as well, it's most people are going to receive some form of grace period, because no one just wants to walk away and go, all right, well, you've lost that sale, I'm walking away now. You know, there's many times that people say, look, get it back on the market. I'll give you 2 weeks, see where we're at. So the fact that you might have to wait 2 weeks or whatever to try and sell that, and you've only got that period, they're actually going to save it, because like you say, all the memo of sale, the contracts, everything is all set up ready for that. So, you know, very few people, most people are going to do everything they possibly can to save that sale, and there will always be that grace period, I think, that you will get to be able to secure it. Oh, Mike, we can't hear you. You muted yourself.
Now, I was coughing. I muted myself. That was probably the best 30 seconds of advice I've ever given anybody. Thank God for that. You shut up.
Oh, we missed it.
There you go. Yeah, you'll have to do a bit of lip reading to find out what that top tip was, because it was my top tip. No, what I was saying there is, I can't remember what was I talking about. I was talking about, hold on, I've got my notes here. Let me just go back, because that's completely thrown me now. Yes. So if you're putting your property back on the market, talk to your agent about going back to the people that viewed it initially that might have missed out. Go back to their mailing list and database of people that got registered, and in particular, those people who've registered since the sale was agreed to now, because they won't be aware of your property because they'll have seen it as sold. Okay. Now, the property portals, when it goes back as a listing again, will match it back up to those people with property alerts, etc. But that can take a little bit of time to weed itself through. You need an agent who, as soon as that property goes back live, good old estate agency from when we were doing it years ago, we had a hot box in front of us with a piece of paper on it, with a card, and it had your name, telephone number, your buying position, and we had top 10 buyers, and we went straight back to those people to say, look, this property's come back available, etc., etc. Good old-fashioned estate agency won't rely on just a bit of software in an office just matching it back up, or portals matching it back up. They're hot on the phones, okay? So have those conversations with their agents and say, okay, who else have you got registered with you? Give me some names of people that you're committing to try and get you around the property again, okay? Because ultimately it's a sales environment. That's what the agent should be doing. They're not just relying on just being on boards, brochures, adverts, internet, okay? That's what good estate agency is all about. Okay, so yeah, that will be the next thing I'd say, is to get your agent to go back to all previous viewers and interested parties and see if we can renegotiate there as well. In regard to the full launch, the next thing again is making sure again your board is changed over, and then even look at local Facebook groups and social media groups. Because, you know, we've talked about it being relied on Rightmove and Zoopla, etc. But there are lots of local community Facebook pages. And the reason why I recommend that agents get involved in these is the likelihood is there is somebody in your location that lives there, that they will know somebody, friends and family, that will probably also consider moving into the same location because their kids all go to the same school, or, you know, they're coming around and seeing you at weekends, etc., etc. So getting involved in these local community Facebook pages and things, I think, is a really good idea to try, particularly when you've got the villages. And again, the community will try and help. And they will share that post, and they will comment on it, and they will tag friends on it that they might have of interest as well to it. So I think getting an agent who is into the community and into using social media and has a presence in these Facebook groups and Instagram posts, etc., is another really, really good way of getting you relaunched and back into the marketplace as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think social media is just key. But I would say that from the very off, you know, if you are looking to sell your home, regardless, get it into those local communities straight away, because you'll be surprised at how many people share. Even the comment of, you know, you've got a beautiful home or something like that can really boost that post.
Yeah.
And get your home out there. But I think, yeah, when maybe time is of the essence, we need to do whatever we can to push that home out for you.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that sort of helps somebody, or again, just have it at the back of your mind in the future. Or, you know, the chances are you're going to know somebody that has this situation that's going to happen to them, because say statistically it's nearly half at the moment. Now, I'm sure that that's not going to last long. You know, we've just seen a flurry of properties, lots of buyers back into the marketplace, a tightening up of the mortgage products. Surveyors being very, very careful in regards to valuing up properties and giving best advice to their clients, which is often the lender and the bank. So look, we're going through a very big transitional period at the moment. Normally it only lasts sort of 3 to 6 months, and then things all settle down again. But say if that sort of prompted any questions, do say feel free to reach out to me or to Jenny. Our email addresses have been scrolling along the bottom of the page as we've gone throughout this evening. Again, if I can offer anybody any help outside of obviously the show tonight, again, please make sure you reach out to me. Normal telephone number 07359 279 705. More than happy to help anybody, be it whether you're on the market with another agent or you know somebody is. The advice, and one of the reasons why we set this show up, is that we can just help our community in Lincoln as well. Anything else you want to add there at all then, Jenny?
Do you know what? Just going back to this, on the flip side, so if you are, maybe you've had your mortgage offer, the chain has collapsed, you've lost the property that you're looking to buy, actually being able to, when you're having to research for a new home because, you know, it can't be saved, having a mortgage offer at that point can really help you get a good deal, because you are now a certain, you know, they know that you can secure a mortgage. So don't be afraid if you are in that situation, even if it's that your house has fell through or whatever. When you go back to the market, you know, at the end of the day, you've got your mortgage offer. It's a case of usually changing the address, another valuation to be done. So you can be really quick through that process. And it usually means you've had the first part of your solicitors all done, your bankruptcy searches and all of that is done. So you're ahead of the game. So actually it could mean you might be able to secure a better deal moving forward if you are in that situation. But I think the key, like you said at the very beginning, Mike, is not to panic. Speak to the estate agent, the solicitor, your mortgage broker. If everyone's willing to play ball, there's usually a solution. It's only when one person dig their heels in that's when the chain really collapses. Most people will do anything they can to push this through for you.
Yeah, it's human nature, isn't it? When it comes down to something like this, everybody wants to make it happen. So I think I say the main thing is communication and making sure that everybody's all on the same page and trying to come up with solutions. And just by asking for help, you'll be amazed sometimes how willing people are to do that for you. Okay, but as I said, it's not the end of the world. Me and Jenny, although it's a bit of a blasé comment, we often have the phrases, you walk down the path you're supposed to be on. And you'll look back in however many weeks, months, and sometimes these things can happen for a reason. And I know that sounds quite flippant, but there's hundreds and hundreds of people I've moved into homes over the years that they've gone through a similar process or situation, and I've seen, met them, many years or months later, or gone back and resold another property for them, and have had many years happy in that property. So it's not the end of the world, but it's horrible when it happens. Many sleepless nights and worries, but I think, as I say, talk to people, get help, ask for help, and then have a plan and a strategy to relaunch it, to try and find another suitable buyer or get the chain back in, back together again somewhere up or down that chain.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So, Jen, if you don't mind, I'm just going to mention, obviously, at the beginning of the show, I mentioned that just under my name there, it's moved away from the Hollenby Mackay Bespoke. So just very quick headline on here. Adam Mackay, who I was partnered up with, joined with the EXP business model back earlier in the year. And I've also joined up with EXP as well. For those of you who don't know, EXP are the largest global real estate agency in the world. and I'm delighted to now be powered and supported by them as well. On a day-to-day side of things, not a huge amount changes. It's me. I'm independent. It's now my business, but they are also now able to support me with the marketing on Rightmove, Zoopla, the marketing, the CRMs, the prospecting, all those sorts of things. But on a day-to-day side of things, it's me as a bespoke agent looking after you to give you the right outcome that you want from the sale of your house, and to give you advice whether you're buying and selling as well. So just want to make that quite clear with everybody. And again, just also want to thank everybody who's given me all the support so far, family, friends, colleagues, yourself, Jenny, and also all the homeowners that have moved over from the previous business over to me with EXP. But again, I'm here to help if any way I can.
Perfect. Look at that. What an ending, eh? A new company built and branded.
That's it. Yeah, in a matter of weeks.
As it felt like months, though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. It's been an interesting few weeks or so, but yeah, delighted now that we're under that banner. So no doubt you'll start to see the boards all changing over. The Facebook page will all change over. The social media things, these things do take some time to do. But we're having some really positive feedback from all the clients that I'm working with, and also the new clients I'm bringing on. We've listed some fantastic new homes coming to the market as well, which is all on my social media as well. At which point, make sure you're following me and Jenny on all our social medias, like all our comments. And Jenny, I have started getting round to building the YouTube channel.
Well done.
I know. I was up there. I messaged you the other day, and I said, right, I started to build up, but I couldn't put any more on it because I put my maximum amount of YouTube videos and viewing times on there in a 24-hour period. So I got kicked off it. So that's another job for this week. So if you have missed, if you have enjoyed the shows and you've missed any from the past, again, head over to my YouTube channel at the moment, Michael Hollenby Estate Agent. But we will be building out a bespoke channel with all of the episodes on as well. But that's a great catalogue for you to go back. There's a playlist in there, so you don't have to look at all the other bits and pieces. You can head straight over there and jump into the previous shows as well. Right. Well, my phones are pinging away. I'm getting some messages in off tonight's show. So thank you very much indeed for that. Great to have you on board. I've done a lot of the talking tonight, hence the water. I'm going to shut up. But again, thanks for your involvement as well, Jenny. And say if we can help you with anything at all, come back and let us know. But unless we hear from you, we will speak to you all again, same time, same place, next week, Tuesday, 7 o'clock for the Lincoln Property and Mortgage Show.